So good morning. I'm here with Alan Johnson of SDIC Services, founder of SDIC Services LLC. Alan has plenty of experience in the IRA, self-directed IRA custodian experience, and I wanted to just connect this morning as any investor in private in funds, real estate, just to hear some of the news that we've learned that self-directed IRAs may be prohibitive in your investing realm. Investors like myself, this is how I got into real estate, how I am able to invest in syndications or other avenues, joint ventures, and I'm extremely concerned. So I figure we'll get some ideas and understand what's going on. So first thing, Alan, tell us exactly what is this provision that's coming out and how this may affect investors like myself.
Yeah, sure. Jerry, there are two subsections here in legislation that's being considered that really are very small impact overall, but has a great deal of impact to individual investors. Let me back up a little bit here. This is all part of reconciliation of the Build Back Better legislation that's currently before Congress. Now, without getting into partisan politics, there is essentially what's going on here is that to prevent a filibuster in the Senate, the Congress is trying to reconcile that 3.5 trillion expenditure in terms of ways that it will be funded without creating undue tax burden to average ordinary Americans. And there are just a bunch of line items in there that all taken together will add up to $3.5 trillion. And there's three documents that have been published by the House Ways and Means Committee that interested people can access, and I can provide you with the links to those to read more about it if they want to. But the upshot of all of this is that self-directed IRA investors, that means IRA investors that have invested a portion of their IRA funds into alternative investments, are going to be severely limited in terms of what those alternatives are going to be going forward.
So what I'm understanding, there's this voting on the $3.5 trillion spending bill. The IRA, the IRS, a certain portion of that, 80 billion, I believe, is being earmarked for fostering enforcement of rules and violations. For investors as myself and real estate investors, the particular section I think is 138.312B. It's irrelevant, but and the language there is saying this section prohibits an IRA account from holding an investment that requires accreditation. So basically, investments that are targeted towards accredited investors or will include accredited investors, potentially sophisticated investors. Now, if this goes through, what will happen? What
will happen, and a particularly onerous thing here, Jerry, is that if you hold an investment that required you to be accredited, and the easy way to know this is if you had filled out the subscription agreement and there was a questionnaire in there that was, asking you basically, do you have either $1 million or more in liquid assets, liquid net worth, or do you make at least $200,000 a year, then you would be accredited. And the regulations say, okay, the fact that this investment requires accreditation will mean that it is no longer eligible to be held in an IRA account. We could get into the logic behind what the IRS is trying to do with this. And as you point out, there is 80 billion of this 3.5 trillion spending bill is going to be diverted to the IRS to enhance their enforcement efforts, because going all the way back to 2014, there is a Government Accountability Office document that illustrated to Congress that essentially a lot of money was being left on the table because the rules around IRA investments were being misunderstood, misapplied, and consequently there was a lot of tax revenue laying on the table that the IRS could go after. This tax revenue now, if obtained, would apply to reconciling the $3.5 trillion that Congress wants to spend on other things.
Understood.
And so that's the genesis of it.
But this potentially would cause a hardship. For instance, looking at someone, using my example, I'm able to use my funds to invest in what I want in my IRA. So now I have a $50,000 investment that now has a taxable event.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. So and as I was saying earlier, there is a particularly onerous part of this. It has to do with grandfathering. It is that you will have 2 years, that is until December 31st, 2023, to liquidate that investment in your IRA. Now, the problem is as you know, and other people know, that these investments are highly illiquid and they can't be sold. They're private investments. They're not offered on the public exchanges. So because you will most likely not be able to liquidate that investment by December 31st, 2023, the IRS will deem that your IRA no longer exists. It will be distributed to you. And for a traditional IRA account, you will have to add the value of that investment. The $50,000 will be reported as additional income to you personally that year and will be taxed, probably for most people, probably taxed at a 24% marginal income tax rate. Plus, because you're obviously not 59 and a half, because you distributed that account early, you're going to be subject to an additional 10% early distribution penalty, which means, to a rough approximation, people that currently hold these investments are going to see about a third of that go away in the form of taxes. Not only that, you'll have that investment now, instead of being held in the name of your IRA, it will be held in your name. It's still illiquid. So you're going to have to come up with, 1/3 of $50,000. You're going to have to come up with $17,000 out of the household budget over the next couple of years in order just to pay the additional tax liability that you're going to have. And this is a hardship. $17,000 is a lot of money. If it's a $100,000 investment, you're looking at $34,000, and on it goes. And these are not people that are ultra wealthy. These are ordinary people that simply wanted to invest their IRA into something that was diversified outside of the stock market.
Absolutely.
But I'm going on and on here, Jerry. I'm getting off. You can see I'm passionate about this.
It's great. Well, and what's awesome is, Alan, that, you're obviously you have many years in the industry as in the self-directed IRA, the custodian industry, and you're currently not working for a custodian itself, because I've gotten letters from the custodians, and of course they're concerned, but it's good to see someone that's not, directly employed, and you're passionate about it. So now what do we need to do? I think those who know, you have to take action. You can't just sit idly. So what do we do how do we fight back against this? Who do we need to alert?
Yes, there are actually custodians with model letters and things like that. I think that's good. I think they happen to be a bit, in my personal opinion, I think they're a bit too general in this case, because we're talking about something that impacts a very few number of investors, but it impacts these investors seriously, severely. So my suggestion is, Jerry, you write a letter, you find it's easily found on the web, contact information for your congressional, your House of Representatives representative, and the 2 senators for your state, and you send them a letter, not an email, but a letter on pencil and paper, and if you can, FedEx it in an extremely urgent overnight package. Why? Because this is extremely urgent, and your letter is basically saying, "Dear Representative, I'm laying it out here. I've got a $50,000 investment here. It was made in good faith. I think that investment is going to help, develop an undeveloped area, making life better for everyone, blah, blah." You can say all that, but it's going to hurt me now, Congressman, because I'm about to have to shell out another $17,000 in taxes 2 years from now, all because what? I was trying to do the right thing with my IRA, and that's just not fair, and it's going to hurt me, and it's not going to generate a whole lot of additional revenue for to reconcile this 3.5
I think
trillion.
it's not even
Get it out of here.
to keep it plain and simple. Most people do not have $17,000 lying around that they can, quickly pay a bill. So that's great.
Right.
So what
And
I'm
not only that, it's putting a hole in your retirement down the line, because you're not getting the tax advantage benefits of that $50,000 going forward, so that you're going to be able to retire securely. So you're going to be a burden, potentially another burden on the system 30 years down the road when you retire, and your account isn't as large as it could have been. So who are you helping here, Congress, is what I'm saying.
So you have put together a model letter. I will
Yes.
have your information here at the end of this video, and anyone who wants to reach out to me, I'll send them your information. So I think this is definitely not something to keep quiet on, and appreciate you educating us on how to move forward. Of course, today it's September 25th. Things change and change quickly, but it's something that not to just sit and watch, is to take action. So I appreciate you coming out and giving us some guidance.
Thank you, Jerry. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak my piece on this.